Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a late night insight video on a very expensive, overpriced Xerjoff, and it's called Begum, 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 Begum. Honestly, I don't even care about this fragrance enough to even look up the proper way to say it. If you are a Xerjoff lover, okay, and you're clicking on this video for validation of spending $550, I can almost guarantee you will not find this here. My channel is all about sort of sharing my views on a fragrance with the world, and this is probably not going to go well for you if that's why you are clicking on this video. However, if you're here because you really truly follow my journey and you want to hear what I have to think about it, then stick around. Although, if you know my thoughts on the House of Xerjoff, you probably can guess what I'm going to say about the fragrance. Although this is a little bit of a different fragrance because it is a Harrods exclusive, so they feel like it's justified in selling the fragrance for $550. I think it was originally $500 and maybe now it's $550. I don't know. But basically, the fragrance to me, and by the way, I have to say thank you to my perfume god person who sent me this decant. Otherwise, I would not be doing this video. But to me, it opens up like a very generic floral. So it's creamy, and there's a very familiar feeling to this fragrance. Like the first time I ever smelled it, I was like, I've smelled this before. It's not very original, at least not to my nose. It feels like I've smelled something very similar. And so, like I said, they sell it for $550, which is just hysterical to me. The first thing that kind of popped in my head, first time I smelled it, and when I saw the price, is that I was thinking, okay, there's oud in here. Or Xerjoff is going to claim there's oud in here is kind of what I'm thinking. Because how else are they going to justify $550? Or, you know, I mean, people probably will see it and, you know, you see all these people and they're like, look, but it has a stone on the front of it. It must be worth $550. Look at the precious stone. And it's a Harrods exclusive and it's $550. So it has to be good, right? So there's kind of... I would say the funniest part to me is while kind of just getting to know the scent, if you will, I like to make notes before I do the video, right? And before I see the note listing, I like to just kind of make my own notes by smelling it first and giving my, you know, just letting my own thoughts just put on paper what I'm thinking. And the funniest part about the whole thing is that my original note said, nice floral smells. Xerjoff will probably claim that woodiness is oud, and the vanilla in the base is way too sweet. Those are my original notes, okay? And here's the blurb from Harrods. The exclusive Begum stone label, pure perfume from Xerjoff, utilizes the hedonistic notes of chypre florals and puts a modern spin on them. A top layer of lemon and bergamot is balanced with a musky base to produce a woody fragrance, perfect for those who don't favor sweet aromas. And I was like, so here's the note listing for those of you interested. Freesia in the top, red berries, lemon, and bergamot in the top, with Bulgarian rose, damask rose absolute, jasmine sambac absolute, lilac, Florentine iris, lily of the valley, and ylang ylang, with a base of amber, vanilla, musk, sandalwood, rosewood, patchouli, and vetiver. So they categorize this as a creamy floral. Apparently, there was maybe a year or two where it was in the OG bottle, the vintage, more square-looking Xerjoff bottle, which I much prefer to the modern rounded bottle. And it's classified as a floral creamy fragrance. And for those of you who are you know, into knowing the background of the name, apparently Begum is a high-class lady or the wife of a high-ranking or royal official, like someone who has a royal title. So, for example, in the United States, a Begum would be maybe someone like the First Lady of the United States, right? In a Muslim country, which I think is usually where that word is used, Begum is used in Muslim countries, it would be maybe like the wife of the Shah or something. I don't know, Sheikh or something, right? The wife of a high-ranking official, sometimes on the royal side of things or on the religious side of things. Okay, so there you go. So I said some negatives, right? It's way too sweet for me, but I want to be Switzerland. I want to be sort of neutral with these. I want to be try to put my feelings aside. So a couple counterpoints, right? In the opening, that sort of floral berry combination in the beginning is quite nice, okay? So you're hit with this the freesia makes it feel very sort of, I guess you could say like clean. There's like a clean floral feeling to it. Freesia always gives me this strange, creamy cleanliness, right? And along with that, you basically get that red berry, that berried floral-like smell, okay? But to me, it smells very generic. Like when I smelled it, I wasn't like, oh my God, creamy berries. Like, I was like, okay, I think I've smelled this before. Like, it's nothing sort of that you haven't smelled if you smelled a lot of fragrances is the way that I would put it. But since I do want to be neutral, that creamy berry sort of floral bit is nice. And the other thing is, I would say that the sweetness is way too much for me, but the sweetness of Begum is nowhere near as sweet as some of the other Xerjoffs that I have smelled. There are definitely Xerjoffs that have been beat with the sweet, ugly stick way worse than Begum, is kind of the way that I would put it. Begum definitely got beat with the ugly stick a couple times, but it did not get beat as bad as some of its brothers and sisters, okay? So the sweetness is there. I mean, there's no getting around it. Anyone who, like the blurb that says, who don't favor sweet aromas, that is just complete and utter. I mean, if you've smelled any amount of fragrances, you're going to pick up the sweetness here. It is front and center. It's just a Xerjoff thing. It's just what they do. It's the reason I think the house, my personal opinion here, so don't send your team of lawyers after me, Xerjoff, but my personal opinion is the house is shit. I hate the house of Xerjoff. In fact, I only own one, and it's the only one I ever smelled that made me go, I need that, and it's Xerjoff Homme. If you're into masculine fragrances and you know vintage leather fragrances and stuff like that, Xerjoff Homme will speak to you. And you can see I got it in the shit little refill bottle because I don't care if there's a stupid sort of stone on the front of the bottle. It doesn't matter to me. I want the juice inside, right? And so that's the only one. I've still yet to review that. I need to review that because I've reviewed other Xerjoffs and the reviews usually kind of go like the way that this one's going. It's a house that is just very mediocre to me. There are some Xerjoffs that I think smell decent. Like, for example, Richwood. I would love a vintage bottle of Richwood. The price is outrageous. There's just no way I would ever pay that, right? So, you know, the other thing that kind of bothers me a bit, I'll say, about Begum is you hear some of these people talking about it, and since there is no oud note, you notice that there's a sandalwood and there's a rosewood note, but there's no oud note, right? So the way that they try and justify the price of Begum is that they say, well, you're giving Xerjoff $550. Clearly, you're going to get $550 of materials back. So they're probably putting it into the very expensive rose and iris and stuff like that. The problem is that the problem with that argument is that IFRA limits the amount of materials that can be put in per each type. So you can only put a certain percentage of rose oil in the composition. It's not like you can make 40% of the composition expensive smelling rose oil. You can't do it and sell it under IFRA. They won't allow you because it might give 1 out of 10 million people a tiny little rash for 5 minutes, you know? And so they won't allow any of the houses to use large percentages of expensive naturals. And the other thing is, rose oil is an expensive natural. And this fragrance, to me, does not smell like it contains a lot of expensive naturals. It smells like a very generic, middle-of-the-road fragrance. I'm sorry, it just does. And so that argument, well, you're spending this much, then clearly you're going to get this amount back in some sort of high-priced florals it's just not true. It's just not based in reality. Not today, anyways. The only houses that can use the naturals in those high percentages would be the artisanal houses that don't follow IFRA. So you want to go buy something from Bortnikov or Aries La Dorée, or, you know, go watch my review on Malik Al Taif. 40% of that is actual rare royal grade Taif rose oil. Other than those kind of houses, you're not going to find that in Xerjoff. Xerjoff cannot sell their bottles and put 40% rose oil in a composition. They just can't do it. Not under IFRA. It's impossible. They'd have to go against the grain and pull out of IFRA, and they're not going to do that because that's their bread and butter is to be in stores like Harrods, right? So I completely disagree with that. And the other problem I have with that whole price argument is that the most expensive floral out of all of these is Florentine Iris. And the iris in here doesn't jump out to me. It doesn't. It just smells like maybe you're getting a little bit of a powdery accent, but high-priced Florentine Iris, I mean, maybe, I mean, if they say it's in there, right? So I'm not gonna fall into the Aaron Terrence Hughes trap and say there's no iris in here, and then be sitting here reading a letter like it's a hostage video. I once said there was no I didn't mean to hurt there. I'm not doing that. But I will say that to my nose, it doesn't smell like Florentine Iris is overdosed to the price where you're getting $550 worth out of it. It just feels like the iris note to me just feels like it's part of the overall composition. And it feels like it's in the background to my nose anyways. It just feels like it just adds a slight little bit of powderiness. So that's a little bit disappointing. And the other thing is the woods. I mean, the woods make a pretty decent appearance. So it opens up with the florals, the berries, a little bit of lemon and bergamot, and then you get the florals that start to come. And there's multiple types of florals in here. There's different types of rose. There's jasmine, sambac, absolute, which is one of my favorite types of jasmine. Lilac, there's a lilac note. There's that Florentine Iris. There's Lily of the Valley. And there's ylang ylang. Okay, so there's a lot of different types of florals that hit you. And obviously this is named after a woman. It's named after a lady, or like I said, the wife of a high-ranking official. So even though this is unisex, this leans feminine. Okay, that just traditionally this leans feminine. And to my nose, the woods, the woods kind of try to pull it a little bit back more to the center, in my opinion. But I think it still leans to the feminine side. I think this would smell much better on a woman than on me. Definitely would smell better on a woman than on me, I'll tell you that. Because there's no way I would wear this as my scent of the day. Because this is way, way too sweet for me, creamy and sweet and stuff like that. But for $550, I would expect those wood notes to be just more sculpted, more prominent. Well, not more prominent necessarily, but I would expect them to be more defined. That's a good word. When I saw the rosewood, I was actually pretty excited because I love rosewood. It's one of my favorite, it's just one of my favorite woods. My mother had a rosewood rosary growing up, and I can just remember that smell of the rosewood. It's very distinct, and it's not here. I mean, I don't get it. Let's put it that way. It's not that it's not here. It's that my nose doesn't pick it up in large quantities. I wish the rosewood note was more turned up. Let's put it that way. Okay. And the other thing is the sandalwood note. Now, to be fair, since I'm Switzerland, all right, I'm in the middle. I'm trying to put my own feelings to the side here. The sandalwood and patchouli combination in the dry down, I like. Okay, that's a hit for me. And the reason it's a hit is they executed it in a style very similar to Richwood. Now, if I was going to buy another Xerjoff, which out of all these fragrances, I only own one. Like I said, this one. I don't own a single other Xerjoff. It would be Richwood. I really, really like Richwood. It reminds me of that sort of, Coromandel, Borneo 1834 style of patchouli and woods and stuff like that. I actually have a review on the channel. You can go check it out. I really, really like Richwood, but I want a vintage bottle, and I don't want to pay big money, so I'll probably never have it. But the way that the sandalwood and the patchouli are sort of blended together in Begum feels a little bit like they've used the blueprint of Richwood, okay? It just harkens back to Richwood just a little bit, but a much more floral-esque, because the florals are just sitting on top, so you can smell all of this in the base and underneath, but the florals are, if you're trying to compare it to Richwood, the florals are really going to take over a lot more in Begum. And the other thing is that into the dry down, compared to Richwood, Begum feels much more musky. So the musk is definitely, I think, prominent. I think they mentioned that as well. But the musk, it says, what did I say? Yes, balanced with a musky base. Okay, so they call it a woody fragrance. I would call it more of a floral fragrance. I think the florals dominate much more. I think the florals are executed competently. All right, I don't think there's anything necessarily super special about them to my nose, but I think they're competently executed. I wouldn't bash the floral execution here. And it's done by a good perfumer. I think it was, oh gosh, what was his name? Let me look it up because I had it. I think in Fragrantica, they listed it as... Yeah, so Fragrantica lists Chris Maurice as the perfumer. There is no perfumer listed in Parfumo or on the Harrods website or anything like that. But Fragrantica... Sometimes believing Fragrantica is like rolling the dice. They have Chris Maurice listed as the perfumer. So basically, the fragrance in a nutshell is that sort of fresh, white, freesia smell that is slightly airy and fresh, mixed with the red berries and that pretty rose. That's a good way to describe the florals in here. Pretty. It's a pretty smell. Pretty rose. With a little bit of that powdery iris, but just a little bit. I don't get very much ylang. I don't get very much lilac, you know, and then it dries into that sort of interesting woody, you know, sandalwood, patchouli, let's say Richwood combination with a heavy musk sort of dry down, and that's pretty much it. Very bland, very generic, very boring. None of this. You know, some of the people who just espouse the greatness of this perfume, I'm just wondering, are they smelling the same thing I'm smelling? Like, you know, some of the comments on Fragrantica, what was the one I read? This is the best fragrance all I ever had. Okay. Yep. Okay. So, anyways, that's kind of my take, which is, honestly, I feel like any Xerjoff you feed me, it's probably going to, the input's going to go this way, the output's going to go this way. This is just the way that these Xerjoff reviews are going to go, except for Xerjoff Homme. Xerjoff Homme is definitely going to get the love it deserves. But Xerjoff Homme feels like a sort of a niche take on some of these, well, I thought I had it right there. But if you know some of these sort of vintage leather type fragrances like Knize Ten, let's say, it's in that style, right? So even the Xerjoff I really like, they're not innovating. You know, when I pay this kind of money for a niche fragrance, I expect a fragrance that's going to blow me away, that's going to do something that I've never smelled before. To do something like Begum and make it a Harrods exclusive and $550, I think a lot of times people smell with their wallet. You know what I mean? Like, if they bought the fragrance, they're like, it's $550. It must be good. Even if I can't smell why it's good, somebody did something amazing to the fragrance, or else why would it be $550? And what I've learned about some of these houses is sometimes they just put shit at expensive prices. There's a house out there called Amaffi, A-M-A-F-F-I, Amaffi. Someone reached out to me and said, hey, I want you to review one of these fragrances because I bought it and I hate it. And I can't believe it's $4,300. It's $4,300. Is it worth $40? You know, what I mean is, do you really think you're getting $4,300 worth of expensive materials in there? Or are they just pricing the shit at $4,300? Is it just a Veblen good at that point? You know, and that's how I feel about some of these houses like Xerjoff. Xerjoff to me is just a very dull, boring, bland house that I am just not a fan. I'm just not a Xerjoff fan. All right, so that's why I said at the beginning, if you're here looking for validation, I'm sorry. But that's kind of what my channel is all about. So that's my take on Begum. That's probably why the guy sent this to me, because everyone else is just, you know, drooling all over this, and I'm just like, I don't understand it, you know? It's just, I don't understand it. But anyways, if you have a different experience, or if you just have a experience with Begum at all, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to reach out. I mean, that opening is, I swear I've smelled this before. I don't know where I've smelled it before, but the opening is so generic smelling to me. Like, if I didn't know this was a $550 fragrance, I would guess this is a $30 to $50 fragrance. That would be my guess. 30 to 50. There's absolutely nothing in here that screams $550. So, yeah, it's funny. I mean, sometimes I honestly, I would like to do like a test where we take some $30 fragrances and put it in some bottles that are $550, and we take the $550 fragrance and put it in the $30 fragrance and give it to people and see what their thoughts are, because they're going to be drooling all over the one they think is $550, is my guess. But I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Begum. I'm sorry. It's just, it's not my thing. That floral, creamy, sweet, red berry fruitiness thing, I'm out. I'm just out. Especially that sweet, the vanilla. Xerjoff needs to turn the dial on the sweetness way, way down. Not just a little bit down. Like on Begum, the sweetness is turned just a little bit down compared to some of their other creations. And they're like, if you don't like sweet stuff, buy this. This is still fucking sweet as hell to me. They need to turn that shit way, way down. But anyways, that's my take. These late night insight videos, obviously, I don't own a bottle. I haven't worn this for years or anything like that. So if there's like details or stuff that I'm missing, do let me know. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. That's pretty much my take. Just very generic, boring, and uninspired. Uninspired perfume is a good way to put it. So let me know what you think, guys, in the comments. Love to see your faces down below in the comments. Always love the interaction and feedback. Thank you to everyone who got us to 7,000 subscribers. And I can't wait for the next 7,000. So cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.